ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna and welcome everyone for this session again on building leadership credibility. So last two sessions, we discussed an overview about leadership paradigms, the challenges which we as leaders face in the current changing context of, and how we need to be sensitive to those changes. And then last week, we began discussing 4 qualities which are essential for developing leadership, which represent leadership credibility and are the building blocks of leadership credibility. And the first one of that was integrity, which we discussed in detail, taking the case study of Lord Rama. Today, I will speak about the second building block of credible leadership, and that is service attitude. As many of you must have heard this term, servant leadership. That means we are leaders, but as leaders, we are trying to lead people to a certain direction, to a certain destination as their servants. So we are trying to serve. It's not a position of enjoyment, it is a position of service. So I would focus on a case study from the Ramayana of the character of Lakshman. The word Lakshman has been defined in Ramayana, in Valmiki Ramayana, in the Balakanda, in the following way: Sarva Priyakarastasya Ramasya Sharirata Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampanno Bahir Prana Ivappara, where it is said that Lakshman pleased Lord Ram in every possible way. Lakshman was endowed with the prosperity of service. Lakshman comes from the word Lakshmi. And what was Lakshman's perception about Lord Ram? Sarva Priyakarastasya. He considered him to be more dear than his own life air itself. Bahir Prana, just like what is most dear to us is our Antaha Prana. When someone leaves the body, we say, his life air has left, or we say, inke pran chhoot gaye in Hindi. So prana basically refers to life, the life air itself. So therefore, Bahir Prana means when you would see Lord Ram walking, Lakshman would consider that my external, second life air is moving right in front of me. So therefore, the word Lakshman comes from the word Lakshmi Sampanna. So Lakshmi Sampanna means one who is endowed with the prosperity of seva to Lord Ram. So therefore, Lakshman, right from his childhood, although he was growing up in Ayodhya right next to Lord Ram, he never hankered for either material opulence or power. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya apahrta chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhu na vidyate. That someone who is attached to these two things, Bhoga and Aishwarya, right? So that attachment, prasaktanam, complete attachment, Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam, tada apahrita chetasam. So these two things steal away one's intelligence. So, and the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi cannot manifest. The one-pointed determination cannot manifest. So if anybody takes to a leadership position, and that leadership position could be either having a certain official position in the organization, it could be proximity to someone with a position, it could be to be in the confidential innermost circle of those who wield significant power and influence. Basically, as I said, leadership is influence. So if we are endowed with any opportunities, any responsibilities, which has influence over at least one other person, then it becomes our responsibility to understand that we have that particular privilege, and that privilege of influence needs to be used very, very carefully. And therefore, as far as Lakshman is concerned, he is a great role model because Lakshman declined the position of crown prince even as a child. He only aspired for the service of Lord Ram and unbroken service at the lotus feet of Ram. Another very interesting reflection with respect to Lakshman's personality is that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains about the characters of Kshatriyas. And then one of the characters he explains as Ishvara Bhava. So Kshatriyas have Ishvara Bhava, which basically means they have a tendency to control and rule over. So it is very, very rare to find one Kshatriya becoming a total menial obedient servant of another Kshatriya. That's unheard of in one sense. So when you look at Lakshman and Shatrughna, Lakshman was serving Ram as a menial servant, Shatrughna was serving Bharat as a menial servant. This demonstrates that Jiver Swarupoy Krishner Nityadas, that the original constitutional position of the soul is actually to be engaged in eternal service to the Lord. And therefore, that is our more compelling responsibility. So Lakshman performed these kind of services to Lord Ram with an attitude which was unparalleled. So Ramayana describes three characteristics of service attitude. And we will discuss about this a little more and go deeper into these three. What are the three elements of service attitude? We always hear in lectures, we should develop service attitude. We always hear that when we are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we are aspiring for service. But what exactly is this meaning of service attitude? So the three characteristics are described beautifully in Ramayana. Bhavagyena kritagyena dharmagyena cha lakshmana. Bhavagyena kritagyena dharmagyena cha lakshmana. Tvaya putrena dharmatma na sambrita na sambrita atapa mama. So in this way, Lakshman, when he is serving Lord Ram, this particular verse comes when both of them are in the forest along with Sita Devi. And after reaching Tapovan, Lord Ram observes how Lakshman, with so much of diligence, careful attention, is putting together a beautiful hut for the benefit of Sita and Ram. He goes about flawlessly, searching for the right location, picking up the right materials, making a beautiful design. That design has consideration of how Sita and Ram should also have a private space for each other. Lord Ram has not expressed it, but he understands. Why he understands? Because he's constantly meditating on how to please Lord Ram. And the best part of it is Lakshman does not create any kind of kaksha or a cabin or a place for himself within that. So by seeing this, Lord Ram is so touched that a deep enthusiasm comes from within Lord Ram, and he speaks this verse. And this verse describes three aspects and characteristics of service attitude. First is bhavagyena. So Lord Ram says, Lakshman, you are able to express such service attitude because of the first quality, bhavagyena. So bhavagyena literally means conscience. A dependent should be conscious of the master's mind, words, and thoughts, and use that knowledge in carrying out the commands of the master to his full satisfaction. Ram, Sita, and Lakshman are living at Panchavati, and Ram is requesting Lakshman to build this cottage. And while giving that instruction to Lakshman, Lord Ram uses words in a certain manner. If you and me hear those words, we may not even see what's the problem. But those same words, they erupted within the heart of Lakshman like a volcano. And he protested indignantly and challenged Lord Ram as to why did he use such words. Ramate yatra vaidehi tvam aham chaiva lakshmanah tadrisho drishyatam desha sannikrishta jalashaya. So Lord Ram gives a specific, what we call as an architect's brief. And he says that, my dear Lakshman, sannikrishta jalashaya, this particular cottage should be very near to a body of water for practical reasons. Along with that, tadrisho drishyatam desha, it should be in a beautiful place. It should be in a scenic place, where beautiful, nice trees or lush green and everything. And then these two things were not at all problem for Lakshman. But what Lord Ram qualified this statement with, that became extremely displeasing to Lakshman. And what did Ram say? Ramate yatra vaidehi. My dear Lakshman, build a house where Ramate vaidehi, where Vaidehi can live. Tvam aham chaiva Lakshmana. And along with Vaidehi, Tvam aham, you and me, can also accommodate within that place. So, naturally, if we are traveling as a party of three and then someone says, okay, we have to stay somewhere and we need a space for all three of us, we'll say, yes, that's normal. But Lakshman started weeping and he fell at the lotus feet of Lord Ram and started begging him, please reconsider your statement. Why did you say Tvam aham, you and me? My service is only for your satisfaction. And if I build a house, and while building the house, I am also thinking about how I will enjoy that personal satisfaction, that selfish aggrandizement. It will not have any happiness because I do not care for any happiness which is independent of your happiness. So therefore, there are different types of pleasure in this world. But the highest pleasure one experiences, physical pleasure, sensual pleasure, mental pleasure, intellectual pleasure, egoistic pleasure. The highest is pleasure which arises as a result of the constitutional nature of the soul to be an eternal servant of Krishna. That is a swarupa, jivera swarupa. So therefore, when the jiva or when the soul serves and pleases Krishna, then the result of that pleasure of the Lord reflects within the jiva's heart. And that is the highest pleasure. And that is known as Swarupa Gata Sukha. Swarupa Gata Sukha means that pleasure which is the bona fide inheritance, which is the bona fide property, sampatti of the jiva. And therefore, only by following the process of service sincerely, honestly, authentically, without any cheating propensity, one can actually get access to that joy of genuinely serving to please. And therefore, one Gaudiya Acharya was speaking this verse, and I really appreciated this verse, and I noted it. And he describes six types of unsatisfactory sevaks or servants. What are the six types of unsatisfactory sevaks? Alir bano jyotishaka, स्तब्धीभूत किमेकक, प्रेषित प्रेषक चैव, षड एते sevakadhama. These are the six ete, these types of te adhama, sevakadhama, the improper or the lower categories of sevaks. What are the six? First, he says Ali. Ali means one is fickle like a bee. Ali basically literally means a honeybee. Ali. And that honeybee, because it is fickle, it doesn't stand at one place. It will go flower, another flower, another flower, another flower, fickle. So when a servant is like a bumblebee or a honeybee, Ali, that means that person's following of instruction is also fickle. Such a Ali kind of servant will follow the master's order, the authority's order, when he feels it is favorable for me. When he feels it is not favorable, then he will make some excuses or he will not follow. Second, Bano. Bano basically means arrow. So this basically means when a servant who is like Bano is asked for service by the master, the servant will respond to that request of the master like an arrow. What does it mean? The arrow does two things. Arrow, first of all, has the quality of piercing any part of our body. So a servant who's like Bano, his speech is piercing like Ban, like arrow. And as soon as he gets an instruction, he talks back with piercing words that penetrate into the hearts of the authorities, into the hearts of the guru, into the hearts of those who are expecting him to perform that service. The second element of Bano is that once you shoot a Ban and the Ban leaves the Dhanush, then it does not come back, it leaves. Similarly, sometimes a servant may be given a service, may be given an instruction. Nobody even guesses how is he taking up that instruction, but internally, that servant must be extremely offended by receiving that instruction, and he does not reveal it, does not share it, but just leaves, never to return, just like an arrow which when released can never be withdrawn. So Alir Bano. Third is Jyoti Shakaha. And that is self-explanatory, because whenever you want to predict about the future, you take shelter of Jyotish. Jyotish is forward, thinking and forward predicting. So Jyotishaka means what? He receives an order and that servant thinks, I am going to do this next month. 100% I will do, but not now, next month. So he is a eternal procrastinator. That is known as Jyotishakaha. Then fourth is Stabdhi Bhutaha. What does it mean? Stabdhi Bhuta is self-explanatory. It is being lazy, inactive. One becomes confused, and sometimes he may become totally motionless. When he's told something, can you do this? And his response is like stunned. There is no response only. And that person becomes bewildered. Why something like this is being told to me? Because that person has lost his habit of going out of the comfort zone and trying to do something which will be of value to the ones who are asking him to perform that service. Because it does not fit within our selfish paradigm, we just throw it out. So that is known as tabdhi bhuta. And fifth is kimekaka. Kimekaka means he refuses to do anything of his own. And when requested, he will respond saying that, Kim ekaka, kya main hi akela hu kya? Am I the only lone person you can see? There are so many other servants, so many other devotees. Why don't you tell them this? Why don't you tell them this? Why you're telling me? Why you're always giving me only this seva? So that is known as kimekaka. Refuses to try to do anything on his own. For everything, there needs to be prodding, dragging, nagging. Then only the person will want to do. And then sixth, preshita preshaka survey. So preshita preshaka means as soon as they receive the service, then they'll pass the buck. Someone else will be engaged in doing that service. So therefore, these are the 6 types of sevakadhama. Alir bano jyotishakah stabdi bhuta kimekaka preshita preshakaschaiva shadete sevakadhamaha. These are the 6 types of sevakadhamas. Now question arises, are all sevakadhamas? Are all of the different types of servant in this category only? No. That servant who proactively serves the needs of leadership, because it is the leadership which is telling him to do something, and he's trying to serve that leadership. So that servant or sevaka who proactively serves by preempting, by knowing in advance what is required, and one whose heart and desire is one with that of the leadership of the temple, of the institution. His heart and desire is one with the Guru Varga, the Acharyas. Then, he will do everything to fulfill that desire, try his level best, and he does not want to act until instructed. And such a person technically is known as an Ekatma Sevak. So Alir, Bano, Jyotishika, Stabdi, Bhuta, Kimekaka, Preshita, Preshaka, these are the 6 unwanted types of Sevak. But what is a wanted type whom we want to follow and emulate? That is known as Ekatma Sevak. Ekatma Sevak means the servant's mood is aligned with the mood of the master. The servant's mood is aligned with the mood of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, Lakshman had that conscience, Ekatma Sevak, that what does Lord Ram and Sita need at this moment? I am willing to do anything to make this happen. And therefore, he was Bhavagyena. He thought Lakshman and Sita are out in the jungles and they are suffering so terribly. If they get some free time with each other in privacy, they will be so rejuvenated. So he understood the need of Lord Ram. He understood the need of the master. He understood the need of what the top management of the institution needs. And therefore, this Bhavagyena is extremely, extremely important. Unless we understand the mood, unless we understand the intention, the desire of whom we are trying to serve, how we'll actually be able to implement and please. So in the first canto Bhagavatam, we have the story of Ashwatthama who kills the sleeping sons of Draupadi, and then he puts his Brahmastra and wants to kill the last child, descendant of Pandava, Arjuna's grandson in the womb of Uttara. And at that point, as soon as Uttara sees, she is running towards the Lord and begging the Lord to protect. And then at that time when the Brahmastra is coming, Krishna looks at Arjuna and he says, please counteract this Brahmastra, and Arjuna also shoots a Brahmastra, it counteracts. After that Brahmastra is counteracted, then at that point, Arjuna knew that he's a culprit. But Krishna wanted to test Arjuna's maturity. So Krishna started asking what should be done with Ashwatthama with respect to his justice. So as soon as this question was asked, Bhima was ready with the answer. He must be killed. Krishna also said, yeah. In that sense, he has performed this kind of a abominable activity and he needs to be punished. But we want to hear everybody. But Draupadi and Yudhishthira Maharaj were in favor of protecting Ashwatthama and not allowing Ashwatthama to be killed. So here we have two members of a great Vaishnava quality, Draupadi and Yudhishthira on one side, Krishna and Bhima on another side. Arjuna is in between along with Krishna, and Krishna is testing him. Krishna said whatever Draupadi said is right, that the Brahmanas, gratitude can never be overcome if he has taught us, and he is the son of a Brahmana. And but the fact is that he has also killed the sleeping sons, and because of that crime, as per Shastra, he must also be subjected to punishment. So, but Arjuna, I will not intervene, I will not do things, you decide. So in this way, Krishna is putting the ball in Arjuna's court. Why? Many times when we go through difficult situations in life, when times are such that we feel we don't have the right answers, this decision looks good, this decision also looks good, both the bifurcations on the highway look attractive, which path of highway I should take? When we are at such crossroads, we have to take shelter of a very important process, and that is deep thinking. We have to be able to use our discrimination to go deep, think about the all pros and cons, and try to see what may have been the intention of Srila Prabhupada in this particular situation. If Prabhupada were here, what he would have done? If our Guru Varga was here, what they would have done? So Arjuna had deep thinking prowess, and he could understand Krishna is telling me, as per whatever Bhima and Yudhishthira are saying, he should be killed. What as per Yudhishthira and Yudhishthira Maharaj and Arjuna and Yudhishthira Maharaj and Draupadi are concerned, both of them feel that he should be protected. So both have their valid points and both have quoted scripture. So when there is a serious debate like this, where both parties are totally convinced and speaking very bona fide references and everything, it is all Shastra. Now, how do you then make a decision? And this is the reason why this particular pastime in the 7th chapter of the first canto Bhagavatam is amongst the first episodes in the Bhagavatam where Krishna manifests personally. So if someone asks you, where does Krishna personally as Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam appear in the Bhagavatam first? He appears in this particular chapter. Why? Because he wants to correct our fallacious thinking, because we think that if I have some doubts in my mind, if I have some contradictions I'm going through and I want to resolve those contradictions, the easiest thing is call up Krishna and ask him, hey, I have this choice, what should I do? You tell me, I will do. So many times in life, when difficult situations arise, where multiple decisions may appear to be equally potent, and we become thoroughly confused in spite of all the scriptural understanding, that what we call technically as dharma sankat, we don't really know what to do in this situation. So in those cases, it is not the quantum of scriptural knowledge which we have assimilated or gathered, but it is the quality of our mature decision making by understanding what would be the intention of a great personality in this kind of a scenario. Arjuna sahasa gyagya harer hardam mani Harer Hardam Athasina. So it is described. Arjuna understood what is Krishna's intention. So Arjuna, between this conflict, so the conflict was going on, and Krishna is wanting to show this conflict as the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Leela in one sense, because he wants to showcase that even if I am there personally, ready to give an answer in one moment, disagreements and differences of opinion and different viewpoints, they will happen right in front of me also. And in such situations, Krishna himself is not able to give an answer. He can, but he's showcasing that don't expect always some kind of authoritative person to come and you will get a top-down answer and instruction and you just pick that instruction and go and implement and apply it. No. Krishna wants to demonstrate that when in these kind of delicate situations where contradictions abound, where straightforward decision making appears to be impossible, it is these moments where we are supposed to go deeper within. Let us not think the chanting of the holy names is part of some mandatory daily requirement, which because we have taken vows, we have no choice, but we have to do it. No. We begin our day with a prayer of chanting the holy names and offering Mangalarti and going through the morning program, because we are supposed to be spending that morning time in a prayerful mood. And when we are prayerful, then Krishna reciprocates and allows us and opens to us a little bit of his heart. And then we are able to understand what is his intention in different situations. Arjuna sahasagyaya. Sahasa agyaya. Immediately at that point, Arjuna was ready to implement and execute Krishna's instructions. Sahasa means immediately. Agyaya, Krishna's agya. But why he was able to do that? Because Harer Hardam Atha Asina. He understood Hari's Hardam, heart. So Arjuna was gifted with the understanding of what is Krishna's heart, what is Krishna's desire, what is Krishna's will. Athasina, and therefore Arjuna took his asina, the sword, and then manim jahara murdhanyam. He immediately took out that money and a little bit of hair. Manim jahara murdhanyam and dvijasya sahamurdhajam, and along with that he also took some of the hair. So the hair, little bit of hair, and that money, which was an inseparable part of Ashwatthama, was taken by Arjuna. But the words which are used to begin this verse is very important. Arjuna sahasa agyaya harer hardam. Harer hardam is important, that he understood Krishna's heart. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that different people may give us contradictory instructions, but these are almost impossible to execute. We can't do that. So therefore, in many times situations in life which appear to be contradictory, which appear to be opposite, and we are actually trying to serve with a bona fide honest intention, but many times we will be faced with a situation where we have to seek a compromise, a middle path. And that path of compromise was selected by Arjuna. Why? Because he had strong discrimination. He had very deep intelligence. And so he separated the jewel from the head of Ashwatthama. This was as good as cutting off his head but his life was saved for all practical purposes. So Ashwatthama is indicated as Dvija or twice born, but he fell down from his position and therefore he was properly punished. So many times in leadership, we may think that decisions should manifest to us right in front of us, black and white, simple. No. Bhavagyena. We have to make an effort to understand Krishna's heart deeply. And that is a lot of effort. So when we say devotees must work hard, what does it mean? So work hard doesn't mean just entering into the kitchen and cooking, or going to the pot wash and washing pots, or cleaning the temple with water. All that may be hard work. But the real hard work which all of us have to do as servants is make a sincere effort to understand the heart of our Master, the Supreme Lord Krishna and his devotees. And there is only one way of doing that is through sincere prayer. And that sincere prayer is what is an opportunity for us to offer when we are part of our morning sadhana or the evening sadhana. So sometimes as practicing devotees, we have a tendency to compartmentalize our day. And we think, oh, this is morning time is for japa. Daytime, then I do something practical. But no, what we do in practical is closely guided by what we are aspiring for and praying for. So therefore, our aspiration and intention should be followed by a pure prayer. And then that is followed by an expression of that in the form of service. So therefore, Arjuna is a great example of Bhavagyena, who understood Krishna's heart, the conscience. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Madhya Leela, with great difficulty gets an opportunity to travel now to Vrindavan, and Mahaprabhu wants to travel to Vrindavan. He has come back from Bengal after one unsuccessful trip. And this is 1515, just after the Chaturmas, and just during Chaturmas Dashara is coming. So just before Dashara, Mahaprabhu wants to leave on the day of Dashara. So he's saying, I want to go alone. And everybody says, Mahaprabhu, please at least take one servant with you. And then Mahaprabhu already knows the last time what happened with Kal Krishnadas in South India. So he quoted that reference, but the devotees were insisting. Finally, Swarup Damodar Goswami says, Swarup kahe ei balabhatra bhattacharya tomate susnigdha bada pandit sadhu arya. He says that, my dear Lord, this particular Brahmana whom you see, his name is Balabhadra Bhattacharya. And he has these 4 characteristics. What are the 4 characteristics of Balabhadra Bhattacharya? Number 1, he has great intimacy with you, in the sense that he has a deep, deep feeling for you. So, intimacy is the first requirement for a servant. One must feel a deep emotion of bonding. That emotion of bonding is based on a feeling of gratitude that I have received so much from my master that, I have no words to repay that, and no action of mine will suffice to even repay that. Bhagavatam says if anyone thinks he can repay, he's a joker, jester. So in this way, he's saying that no, actually, Balabhadra Bhattacharya has deep feeling for you, my dear Lord. And that feeling is the first principle of intimacy. The second principle, as far as love is concerned, or the qualities of a servant, is that susnigdha bada pandit. So snigdha comes from the Sanskrit term sneha, which means ghee. Ghee burns itself to give light. Similarly, a servant is willing to sacrifice himself and herself and give light to others, to the master. Tomate susnigdha bada pandit. Pandit means second is intelligence. He not only has intimacy, but he also has the right kind of intelligence. So after intention comes intelligence. And then Pandit Sadhu. Sadhu basically means that one who is well behaved, who's having integrity. He speaks what he does what he speaks. Pandit, Sadhu, and Arya. Arya means one who is having excellent behavior with others. And so, after intimacy, intelligence, integrity comes interpersonal dealings are impeccable. So, impeccable dealings. So, one who is impeccable dealings, one who has integrity, one who has intelligence, one who has, the intimacy with the master, he is qualified to serve the master in the best possible manner. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did not want a new person like Kal Krishnadas. So Swarup Damodar Goswami immediately said that, Balabhadra Bhattacharya said, and Swarup Damodar Goswami had seen that person very, very thoroughly. And, he knew that, okay, he loved the Lord, he was learned, he is honest, he did not have duplicity, he was simple, he was also advanced in Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada in that particular purport quotes a very famous proverb from Bengali: Ati bhakti chorer lakshan. Too much devotion is a symptom of a thief. Okay, if someone is posing to be a great devotee, but mentally one is thinking something else, is duplicitous. So one who is not duplicitous is called sadhu. So Swarup Damodar immediately pointed out, yeah, this is Balabhadra Bhattacharya, and he has all these qualities. And therefore, Mahaprabhu agreed. So therefore, the word snigdha in Bhagavatam also is used, Bruyu snigdhasya shishyasya guruvo guhyam apyuta. One who has great love for the master. As I said, from sneha, which means willingness to sacrifice and serve. So, discussing about this quality of bhavagena or conscience, we see the example of Lakshman, the example of Arjuna, the example of Balabhadra Bhattacharya. So the question is, what are the 5 things or the 5 changes which we can make in a very simple way so that we are able to become more and more thoughtful and go deeper? Because many times it appears that we are going through the process of devotional service in a mechanical manner. How conscious am I of what is the intent and the will of our founder Acharya? How conscious am I of what is the intent and will of my authorities under whom I'm serving, of my spiritual authorities, my organizational authorities? So therefore, the problem is we don't think enough, right? And as leaders, we should realize that one of our chief services is to think deeply about my relationship with the Supreme Lord, my communication which I'm going to do with people outside. I must think deeply about various people who with great faith have joined our team. How is that, relationships with those people? How's the dynamics? We should think more deeply about how I can reach out in different parts of our community and help those in need. We should think more deeply. Am I doing enough to encourage those who are serving with me? Am I doing enough to help people grow in their relationship with Krishna? Am I thinking deeply enough about what is going to be my personal future in terms of seva within ISKCON Am I thinking deeply within about, what will be the future of the project I'm leading? Or am I thinking in terms of where do I want to lead my project which I'm leading? Okay. So therefore, many times as leaders, and all of you will, also agree, and I also experience it all the time, that we are so busy dealing with crises, urgent things. There is a whole lot of emails to be answered, and many times we are just trying to just make sure that the inbox is empty, and one after another, meeting after meeting, and we are just popping in and out, but we do not spend quality time even in a week thinking. So the question is, if you are looking at the next 7 days, please note down how much time have you budgeted in your next 7 days simply to think, simply to be creative. Third, to try to address the problems, or solve the problems which we have not been able to solve so far. And not just, think about it, but to work on it. How much time have we allotted or budgeted in our next week just to dream? How much time have we, budgeted to innovate? How much time have we budgeted to make systematic a strategy how to advance our mission? So therefore, this is a very important thing, because when we hear about Arjuna, when we hear about Balabhadra Bhattacharya, when we hear about Lakshman, these are all people who had deep sense of conscience, bhavagyena, right? And they were very conscious about thinking about these things. So therefore, this is a very, very important principle, that better thinking leads to better leadership because of a depth in the conscience. So therefore, there is a famous quote about Thomas Edison. What is special about Thomas Edison is Edison was a professional, profound thinker. He organized his entire life and factories around thinking about things which no one had thought of before. And he, of course, he was a genius, and he held personally more than 1,000 patents, which is a record. And he had, a placard, and that placard, and I mean, this is a very common thing. Everybody knows about this. There's a famous quote which inspired Thomas Edison a lot. And this placard was written by Sir Joshua Reynolds. And on that placard, left to right, everything was written very, very clearly. There is no expedient to which a man will not resort to avoid the real labor of thinking. There is no expedient to which a man will not resort to avoid the real labor of thinking. That means the default setting all of us have in life is we generally avoid the labor of thinking. So Edison designed his life and his business about thinking. He created labs, dozens of workers, and think, innovate, invent. I mean, of course, I'm not saying we have to be like Edison, and I'm not saying we should just be thinking all the time. But the point is that when people who are primarily doing things in the material world, just driven by a drive to excel, and they can think so deeply just for commerce, just for industry, just for growing businesses. So much of thinking. So how much we should be thinking to advance Krishna consciousness movement? How Advaita Acharya was constantly thinking about the position and situation in Navadvip, and that led to his deep prayer. That thinking was out of concern, and that concern led to prayer. So, therefore, that concern should be followed with contemplation. That contemplation, when intensified and formalized through a prayerful chanting of the holy name, helps us get a deep sense of conscience. So, concern, contemplation, and conscience follow each other. So, therefore, we can you can try some of these things in the next 1 week and see a difference in your own lives. First is limiting times of meetings and email to a pre-scheduled amount, and not that someone suddenly comes up and says, I want to meet you, I want to meet you, and then you. So yes, we need meetings because meetings ultimately help run organization, but have pre-scheduled, properly agenda specific meetings, and limit those, and limit the emails also, which means that the concept of deep work means schedule specific times where you actually answer the emails. Otherwise, in today's day and age, when constantly the inbox is popping and attracting your attention all the time, you lose the habit of going deep into a thinking paradigm and trying to analyze what should be done. Second, you can schedule your creative and thinking time. So you schedule your time for exercise, you schedule your time for some family visits, you schedule time for studying books or whatever. But let us try to schedule some time for thinking and creativity also. Third, find out, where your best ideas will come from. That means in which kind of space, and you try to recreate that space regularly. Sometimes, people are pouring water in the garden. That time their creativity is at the best. Other people, sitting and reading something, studying something, and then they get excellent ideas. For me personally, the best ideas I get when I'm studying Srila Prabhupada's books or hearing some lectures, and immediately, because of what is being spoken or what I'm studying, those words trigger off, some brilliant ideas connected to something which may have been bothering us for some time. Fourth, develop an idea of capturing your best ideas in the form of notes. Okay, I'm not saying physical notes because many of you are now on smartphones, but at least you should have a system where you can actually record some of the ideas which pop up, because some of those may be Paramatma Prerit and it is connected to what you have been contemplating, and therefore if you do not capture it and note it, you may lose it. So there are various ways of capturing it, but it is just an idea which can help you. And the fifth is that you have to change your setting. What does it mean? That if you are constantly working in one particular place, in one particular space, in one particular dimension, you have to take a break and go to other places which are not closely associated with your workspace, so that your creativity part is refreshed. Because our emotions, our thoughts are deeply connected to spaces, and therefore these are some of the ideas which you can utilize for becoming more deeply embedded in the idea of conscience, bhava gyena. Second, Lakshman demonstrated kritagyena. The second feature of service attitude. So Lakshman was extremely competent. How he was competent? When he was growing up as a prince, Lakshman was constantly observing various activities which different workers were doing in their profession. But the purpose of Lakshman's observation was to note that in future when I have to serve Lord Ram, I will be able to utilize these skills in the service of Lord Ram. We had similar experience with Vibhishana, with our Sugriva also. When Sugriva was chased over the entire universe by Lord Ram, by Ravana, at that time, by Vali. So Vali was chasing Sugriva left, right, and center, and Sugriva was trying to save his life in the whole universe. Because of that, he noted all the different parts of the entire universe's geography. He knew it by heart. And then when the time for the search came, he very graphically explained north, south, east, west directions, just like as if he is the creator of GPS. So Ramchandra was very astonished and impressed, and he said, "How do you know such details?" Yes, well, when Wali was chasing me, out of great fear, I was looking around very, very deeply, trying to find a place to hide. And therefore, because of that, particular shock in which I was running around, everything just got imprinted in my mind. So we will go through a certain experience at some point of time, but whether we go through prosperity or adversity or through purposeful intervention, we see someone doing, let us try to keep all of that absorbed, knowing that we will be able to use this in future in the Lord's service. Sometimes devotees feel, why did I go through this situation? But it is an experience ordained and orchestrated by the Lord, so that your response to certain situations in future is much more measured and mature because of having gone through that previous experience. So there is a reason why the Lord has put us in that particular situation. So like that, when Lakshman would see, beautiful construction of cottages happening, he would observe it very carefully and learn from the workers. And Lakshman was not like, in a mood to do something just as a matter of formality. See, bhakti is nothing but expression of our intention through our action. If the intention is not, pure, then just by moving through your hands and legs, it is just manifestation of some actions. That is not bhakti. So the deepest intention of Lakshman was how I can serve and please Ram. So let me just remember all these different techniques which I see, because one day I will use it. So that deepest intention triggered off such an intensity in Lakshman to learn things for the pleasure of Ram. And therefore, Ram went to see how Lakshman had built it. So Lakshman had built separate room, one for meeting the guests, one for daily oblations, one for taking rest. Then Lakshman had made one separate kitchen, which could be used for cooking. Then he made separate one room where Ram could sit with Sita and eat. And at last Ram saw that Lakshman had also built a room where Sita and Ram could spend intimate time together in private. So Ram had an intense desire to have such a room, but he had hesitated to share this with Lakshman. So when Ram saw that, without me telling, Lakshman has understood, not only understood my heart, because bhavagyena, which we described, but kritagyena, he has built this house with such design, with such perfect vastu, with such, perfect ambience, aesthetics. Ram embraced Lakshman, and Ram said to Lakshman, just by seeing how you are caring for me, understanding my intention and putting your heart and soul with intensity, I do not even feel the separation from my Father, because I feel I have my Father present in your form, O Lakshman, by seeing your care and your love and your devotion. So, therefore, as far as competence is concerned, that's a very, very important element. And in fact, most of our education system is focused on helping us build our competence. But those are competence and skill sets which may be helping us in our specific profession in a certain way. But then, all of us, when we are servants of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, we are always meditating. How will Mahaprabhu, or how will Krishna, or how will Srila Prabhupada use my life to accomplish something bigger than my own pleasure, my own comfort, or my own goals? My dear Lord, I want to be used by you for accomplishing something great in your mission. And therefore, without having a bigger sense of mission, we will continue chasing our wants, my desires, my satisfaction, and everything will keep bothering us. So, therefore, in spite of whatever you do, you have to realize that unless there is a strong purpose in what we are doing, in due course of time, we lose the steam. And therefore, apart from all the different relationships which we have, one of the most important things which we need to impact, which we need to add in our life, is various dimensions by which we can create bigger impact with our life. Yes, we all have our areas, we all have our responsibilities, but impact is different from just going through the motions of an activity. Just because you are in contact with an activity does not necessarily create impact. So contact is not equal to impact. So therefore, what are the 6 ways in which we can create impact in our life? First, let us be conscious of every moment we spend and utilize whatever time we get to understand Krishna's will and desire by studying his books, by reading his books. Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Granatascha Swacheshtitam Kalena Nadidirgena Bhagavan Vrishate Hridi. The first principle of impact is only a reader can be a leader. Again, if you are not a reader, you cannot be a leader. Now you may think, oh, but I'm so busy, I'm having so many Zoom calls and I'm having this one and that one. And where do I find time? I hardly get 10-15 minutes in between one call, another call. But that's the catch. Whatever time we get, fill that gap with some very inspiring spiritual content, either from the Shastras or books written by the Acharyas or the books which will help us improve our service in Krishna consciousness. Be very conscious to fill up your time with something positive, tangible, transforming. So therefore, that is the first principle of how to create impact is we begin by filling our time, with meaningful words from different dimensions. Second, let us budget or eliminate or cut down on prajalpa. And when I say prajalpa, you may say, but I don't talk to anybody so much, but there is enough prajalpa online. watching television or online or social media or this or that, and that everybody is connected to so many WhatsApp groups. Just checking your WhatsApp sincerely every day, every message will give access to enough prajalpa. So cut down on prajalpa. Third, budget your resting periods, right? So what is laziness? Laziness means resting when you are not tired. Okay, when you're tired, yes, sleep. Whatever hours you need to sleep. So you sleep 7 hours, 8 hours, whatever is required. But if we are simply in the mode that I'm not feeling inspired to do anything, what to do? Let me go to sleep. So many times, devotees become lazy and indolent because of lack of a strong missionary purpose. They don't really, get up in the morning thinking that I have to do, something today in this direction. They're just going through the motions of the practice of bhakti. So therefore, if it continues like this, resting will stop being restorative, and then resting will become self-indulgent. So therefore, we have to cut down on our rest and sleep and be very careful about how we are doing that. Fourth, early to bed, early to rise. And this is very important because Srila Prabhupada has given us a beautiful morning program. In fact, till 1970-71, there was no morning program. And then Prabhupada introduced it. So the morning program did not come into being right at the beginning of, ISKCON's creation. It came up a little later. But why is it important? Because practically all over the world, researchers have established this. Of course, we don't need that research because the Shastras are always saying use the Brahma Muhurta. But the researchers also say that whatever you invest your first few hours of your day, that you consider to be your most important priority. So as soon as we begin the day, we begin with chanting of the holy names and standing in Mangalarti and praying, please engage me in your service. That means for us, getting opportunity to serve is a priority. And that's what we are investing our time in. So therefore, a very huge responsibility as leaders today for all of us. In fact, there's a quotation. I don't have the quotation right now immediately, but the quotation where I've read Prabhupada say, as a GBC member, it is your, I think it's a letter to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. As a GBC member, it is responsible to go from temple to temple and see that the devotees inside are attending the morning program. So now this is where the, challenge is that ISKCON today is having almost 99% devotees living in homes. But now the question is, should the householders and grihasthas living in homes be expected to follow the same temple program? Maybe not. But the household community has to come together to figure out what should be our consistent program with respect to our spiritual practices. So the important thing is not a place, not a location. And the important thing is not because everyone is doing, I should do. But the important thing is to have conviction in the consistency of the process. Unless the process we follow is consistent, we will not experience purification. And only when there is purification from the false ego, one will actually be able to, have freedom from false ego and develop close, intimate relationships with others. So I really like this particular section in Antalila, where Haridas Thakur is converted or transformed the heart of this prostitute. And she ultimately is surrendering unto him. And she says, बेश्या कहे कृपा कोरी करह उपदेश की मोर कर्तव्य जाते जाय भव क्लेश. So the Vaishya says, please tell me what I should do. And Thakur Haridas says, Nirantar naam lao kar tulasi seban achirat pabe tabe krishnera charan. Nirantar naam lao. Chant the holy names constantly. Do tulsi seva. Achirat pabe. Very soon you will attain Krishna's lotus feet. Tabe sai Vaishya gurur agya loila grihabitta jebachila brahmane radila. So that Vaishya accepted Thakur Haridas as Guru and accepted his order. Agya Loila. And then Grihabitta Jebachila, whatever she had at her home, Brahmanere Dila. She distributed amongst the Brahmanas. So chanting the holy names, serving the Tulasi, accepting the order of the Guru Varga, and being sacrificing in following the instruction. So the principle is she followed the instruction. Tulasi seva nakore charvan upavas indriya damana hoila premera prakash. And then she started serving Tulsi regularly. Charvan upavas. And she limited her eating. Indriya damana hoila. She controlled her senses. And then prema manifested. And this lady who was a prostitute before, what does Antilila say? Prasiddha Vaishnavi hoila parama mahanti bada bada Vaishnavatara darshane te janti. Big Vaishnavas came there to have her darshan, showing the power of the transformative effect of the process of chanting. So extreme examples are given in the Shastras to give us hope that yes, we need to commit ourselves to this process. So therefore, whether one is a brahmachari or a sannyasi or a grihastha, the important thing is not that, I'm a brahmachari, I'm a sannyasi, I go to the morning program in the temple, but someone is a grihastha, they cannot go, what should they do? They may be a grihastha, they may be at home, but it is important for them to follow two things: commitment to the process, and number two, consistency in the practice. So therefore, the commitment to the process and consistency of the process of the practice is enabled by a schedule where we go to bed early and try to rise up early and commit ourselves to this process and be consistent. Fifth is, associate with other devotees who are actually making a difference. And that association is very important. Satsangat mukta duhsango hatumna utsahate budaha kirtyamano yashoyasya sakrit akarnya rochana. So simply by that association, transformation happens. So this is a very, very important point. Then sixth is, do not focus. You may say, okay, I already have satsang and everything, but then I'm not getting results. That devotee is already advanced, but by associating with that person, I'm not getting the results. Don't focus on immediate results. Just by, doing some consistent practice, committed to a process, your impact cannot be measured now. It takes time. It'll take time before you can actually make a difference. So, for those who are parents, don't expect that the child at the age of 4 will come up and thank you for being such a nice father. No, when they are towards the older age, then they'll realize what they have received. So they come back and thank you as parents. But when they were younger, they never did that. But still, you did the right thing. So therefore, we have to keep doing the right thing. And when Raghunath Das Goswami tells Lord Chaitanya that I want to go and run away, Mahaprabhu tells him, Sthire hoya ghare jaho na hao batul krame krame paye lok bhavasindukul. Be steady, be patient, commit to the process. Bhajanera madhye sreshta novida bhakti, Krishna prema Krishna tite dhore mahashakti, Tara madhye sarvasreshta nama sankirtan nirapradhe nama loile paye prema. Then Mahaprabhu tells Sanatan Goswami, are you thinking of jumping in front of the cart, committing suicide? This body belongs to me. You think by killing yourself you get Krishna prem? No, only through bhajan, and in that bhajan through offenseless chanting. So therefore, this is the sixth and most important principle, that do not expect immediate results. It will take time. So have patience. Utsaha nishchayat dhairyat. So therefore, the other day, people were asking us how to grow your audience, in the sense that how to speak or connect with something which is of relevance. Because you may work on your social media, on emails, on your blogs, on your messages or whatever, but a very important element of patience is required when it comes to preaching. You see that I'm trying my best, but people are not responding. Previously you never knew how many are watching, but now you have all the metrics on the YouTube and all the Facebook pages and everything. Some stupid thing is being spoken somewhere and then so many people are watching, but we are telling the highest philosophy, nothing is happening. What is going on? So therefore, we have to realize that if as an organization we have to create impact in our messaging, we have to do three things. First, we have to figure out the why, not just the what. Okay, as just by outlining the what to do, how to do, when and all, no. Nobody cares about what, how and when the issue is why it matters. Okay, therefore, it is very important for us to focus on this. If you're listening to me, if you're hearing me, if you're subscribing to the channel or you're subscribing to our newsletter, if you're subscribing to our email chain, you're agreeing to receive regular emails from us, how are you going to benefit as a reader, as a devotee, by reading, watching, listening? What would you miss if you did not take part in this? Right? So if we have not figured out why people must listen, why people must engage, if that why is not clear, then it's not worth even sharing. And once you have isolated the why, then you understand that yes, this is a great perspective to present. And then you break it down further. And then you can actually go to the next level of how do I get people to read this or watch this and things like that. So therefore, when people are creating content or speaking or sharing or conducting even Zoom seminars, lectures or live, we want to attract audience. But we won't do that if the why is not clear. Second, we have to put ourselves in the position of those who are hearing, and then see if I was in that position, would I still be interested in hearing what I'm speaking? Which means that whatever you're speaking, you hear it yourself. Whatever you're writing, you read it yourself. And see, is it interesting me, inspiring me, or making me shake my head that, oh, what's this? What's being written here? So therefore, as many of you asked the other day, today's generation is asking question, what is in it for me? WIFM. Okay, so when we are writing something, speaking something, creating some kind of a video or putting any kind of content, we have to be very, very clear when we are doing that. And we should be actually ourselves getting inspired when we do that. So therefore, we have to recognize that. We cannot ignore that. We cannot expect others to be inspired by something which we ourselves are not inspired by. That's the second point. Third is, let us try to be in the mood of helping. So just remember all the videos you are watching more, the blogs you are reading more, the things you are connecting to more. And it's all to do with people who are creating content which is of use to you. They are helping you, and you are also feeling, oh, they are just giving, helping me like anything. So therefore, if we also are speaking from the Gita, from the Bhagavatam, we should be giving so much, to people that they really feel that we are trying to be there where they need us. So we need to understand that people are drawn to things that help them, that make their lives better or give greater meaning. And therefore, if we help people, then people would want to be connected to us. And that's a very important element. So the third part of Lakshman character as a servant leader is bhavagyena kritagyena dharmagyena, is high character. Service attitude means conscience, competence, and character. Whatever Lakshmana did was on the basis of selfless service. He did not build a room for himself. He stood outside as a guard. And when Sita was being chased by Ravana and being taken by Ravana in the Pushpaka Viman, from the top she threw some ornaments, and they were picked up by Sugriva and the monkeys. And then when Lakshman and Ram saw that, Ram said to Lakshman that, hey, can you identify the beautiful earlets, the armlets and the earrings of Sita Devi? And when Lakshman heard that, he looked at those and said, Naham janami keyure, Naham janami kundale, Nupure tvabhijanami, Nityam pada bhivandanat. I do not know armlets of Sita. I do not know ear pendants. But Nupur eva vijanami. I only know the anklets, because I'm always meditating on Sita Devi's lotus feet. So, in spite of having such a high character, Lakshman was accused by Sita of trying to enjoy with her. And this was so painful, because Sita was impatient and she wanted Lakshman to leave her and go behind that voice of Ram. Lakshman was saying, my dear Sita Devi, this is not Ram's voice, it's a demon's voice. She said, no, I want you to go right now. And then when Lakshman postponed and was hesitating, Sita looked at him and said, I know why you have come to the forest, you want to enjoy with me. It was such a heavy jolt on Lakshman's heart. In those conditions, he made a Lakshman Rekha and went. So therefore, even when he was accused of having the wrong intentions, so Sita questioned Lakshman's intentions. And then when he went to Ram, Ram chastised Lakshman. Why did you leave Sita and come? You are such a useless, a warrior. And Lord Ram questioned Lakshman's competence. So Sita Devi questioned Lakshman's character. Ram questioned Lakshman's competence. But in spite of that, Lakshman continued to serve. And therefore, this is very important. And as leaders, all of us experience various challenges and various struggles. And it's very important for us to cope and deal with these struggles properly. And because we are leaders, we are not in a position to share many of these with others because we are in leadership roles. So what are these 11 challenges all of us face? First is, I am less secure than I appear. Okay. Because we are leaders, we have to present a very tough exterior, but actually the interior, internally, we may be quite fragile. Okay. So to be internally secure is a tough journey, and people don't like insecure leaders. But insecurity is a trap, because the more insecure you are, the more you resist telling others that I'm insecure. And the more people dislike you because they can sense that this is going on. So therefore, how do you deal with insecurity? At least let there be one or two people whom we can admit our insecurities. They will help us deal with it. I always remember a great Dr. Manke, who was a great heart surgeon, who did some of the most astonishing, surgeries, including for Bal Thackeray and all that. And in fact, this Kokilaben Ambani hospital, which we see today, was originally meant for to be Manke's hospital. But then, right at the just before the Bhumi Pujan, he had a massive heart attack, and he was driving, and he was, telling those who were attending on him what to do, because he had done so many surgeries. But when he himself went through a heart attack, nobody could save him. So we are all preachers, we are all leaders, but we also need help, because there are situations where we as doctors cannot treat ourselves. So first is insecurity, admitting that insecurity and dealing with it. Second, we often also realize that getting closer to pure devotional service is not easy as we thought in the beginning, because our goal is pure devotional service, prema bhakti, coming close to Krishna. But then we realize that, oh, I don't know where that is. I thought Adho Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, everything over in the first couple of years, and so Anartha Nivritti should take 5-10 years. But no, it is still going on and on and on. So therefore, we are preaching also, and we are telling people also, if a new person asks, so now you have spent 25 years, so at least now, do you think you are fully pure? And then we don't have the answer. So therefore, we have to accept the fact that getting closer to Krishna is not easy. Third thing, I may be lonelier than, I let people know, because leadership is complex, and it involves going through seasons of unpopularity because of decisions taken. We have to take tough calls, or we have to be in situations where people misunderstand us. And because most of us are leaders, most leaders have a driven type of personality. For them, tasks are more important than relationships anyway. So things may get lonely at times. And, we have to be very conscious about this. Fourth, it is difficult to manage relationships in our personal life. And especially if someone is a grahastha, managing the relationships with family members. For those who are brahmacharis, managing relationship with other members of the ashram, in the midst of constantly being in a decision-making role. So therefore, hard work and home work, both, sometimes may be difficult to manage. So therefore, we have to be also conscious that because of the kind of role we have in leadership, to maintain relationships cordially in the long run will also be a challenge. We have to be ready to kind of have that trade-off and accept the trade-off in this particular deal of choosing leadership roles, so that we are not blaming anybody in the long run. Fifth, we may not say it publicly, but all of us have experienced the fifth paradigm, that criticism hurts like anything. When the criticism comes, we pretend and show sometimes that it doesn't hurt, but it does, whether we admit it or not. What do? Express your pain to the Supreme Lord, express your pain to the deity, share your pain with some other devotee who is sympathetic, right? And let us be like Lord Shiva, who took that poison halahal, did not take it inside. Taking inside means allowing yourself to be affected by it and losing enthusiasm. Throwing the poison out means criticizing and spitting out fire on someone else, but hold it like that. So, how do you make criticism hurt less? First is you acknowledge that criticism hurts. Sixth suggestion, or the sixth symptom or sixth characteristic which all of us experience as leaders, that because we are so absorbed in serving others for so many years that we are afraid to ask for what we really want. Because for us, it's easier to ask for something which the mission needs or the temple needs or for other needs. But then as soon as we feel I need this for my service, but we think, how can I say it? Because I will sound very selfish. And sometimes it can be a simple thing that I need a break. I need a few days out. Or someone who's a householder, they may need a little extra Lakshmi or a house or a time with family or whatever. So that is, also something which sometimes we keep silent about. Seventh, sometimes we may get so disturbed that we may think of leaving, even though we may stay on. We will go through seasons of questions, seasons of doubts, seasons of uncertainty. And therefore, we should not be sitting in silence. We should be sharing so that appropriate action can be taken. Eighth, we may be continuing a particular seva, but secretly dreaming about, if only, I could do this particular seva, because I thought leadership in ISKCON would be a wonderful experience, but I have to deal with so many intangibles which were never told to me before. People management, conflict management, getting people to do things which they are not inclined to do. I actually wanted to do something totally different. So therefore, the secret is that every day, at least do a few minutes of what you really like to do and stay in touch with that. That will give you nourishment and strength to do things which you may not naturally like to do. Ninth is, sometimes I feel that I really don't know what I'm doing. So a leader, sometimes in a situation of great chaos, challenge, difficulty, confusion, may think that, I have reached this level in leadership. I've been doing it for so long and nothing much is changing. Problems are not solving. There are no clear answers, and so many intelligent people are near me, around me, but still even they don't know what to do. So that's where real leadership begins, when you feel you don't really know, but you continue doing it. And then you look at opportunities, how change can be. So dhairya is very important. Okay. Then 10th, sometimes we feel that other people have more faith in me than I have in myself on some days. And that's a fact. That We may be going through some crises and ups and downs, and we may be experiencing a low, but others have great faith and expectation, and that kind of uh, keeps us going. So even when you stop believing in yourself, keep believing in people who believe in you. So therefore, satsang always helps. And 11th, this is one of the tough things which leaders have to deal with, that when they start thinking that actually when I joined ISKCON, I thought in 10 years I would have made this much progress. In 20 years, I would have made this much progress. But I see that I have made only this much progress. Is it because I have jumped into leadership role too early or whatever? Why is it like this? So we may go through an expectation gap on how much expectation we had to make progress and how much we actually feel we have made. So in this way, these are, some of the features which help us introspect, contemplate, and then based on our contemplation, we actually transform our character. So bhavagyena, conscience, kritagyena, competence, and bhavagyena, kritagyena, which is, Lakshman's great competence in doing what Lord Ram really wanted him to really achieve. Bhavagyena, kritagyena, dharmagyena cha Lakshmana. So in this way, Lord Ram is quoting this verse, which demonstrates the three very, very important characteristics of service attitude as a second leadership credibility quality. Any questions? Can raise your hand on the electronically. Yeah, Rasa Ashray Prabhu.
Prabhu, I missed out a second and third point. Can you repeat, Prabhu? Just I will note down.
Yeah, in this last series, or which one?
The last one, 11 points. 11 last.
Yeah. So basically, when I began, I said that the first principle in this is, we initially, when we begin the leadership role, it appears that yes, I'll take care of this, and you think it's no big deal. You see other leaders and you think I can also do it. But as you begin, you feel sense of insecurity. So that is the first principle, and that insecurity must be dealt with. Second is that we thought by following this Navvidha Bhakti, Krishna consciousness process, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, it's very easy. But then we realize coming closer to prema, forget prema, just coming to the level of nishtha itself is not easy. And third is, the entire process is based on satsanga. But when we are placed in roles of administration, where we have to deal with administering rules upon devotees, then you may start feeling that the association of devotees is kind of unhappy with us for the decisions we are taking. So we may start feeling a sense of loneliness. So that is also another factor. So these are some, few thoughts. Yeah, Sri Madhav Gauranga Prabhu.
Gauranga Prabhu, my obeisances. Thank you for your talk. Excuse me, I'll just try to reveal my heart a little bit. Last few days, been hearing you speak, and your beautiful way of lecturing and highlighting the qualities of the Lord and His associates, and then relating that directly to our service as leaders, as devotees, really even. I just personally struggle with, I guess, and I think it's because of a lack of spiritual realization and maturity, naturally. But the difference between what we hear and what we experience and see. So, as I understood it, the qualifications or qualities to develop and cultivate, which will help us bridge that gap, and you've highlighted those. But still, that I don't want to call it a doubt, but you could say confusion or insecurity, maybe even a better word, as to how we can. You start seeing things at a certain level of leadership in the movement, and how we can rationalize our personal progress and sadhana and focus and vision, and the immaturity we may see in ourselves, knowing that, when we see the negative, it's actually the negative in ourselves we're seeing for the most part. So just if you can speak on that, or just some personal confusion. My background, I was born in the movement, and I've been through and seen a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And so the duality is oftentimes a little difficult for me to digest.
Yes.
Excuse me, sorry.
It's a very important point which you have shared, because one of the crucial, one of the crucial needs for any of the information to create an impact and transformation in the heart is Shraddha. And that Shraddha is basically the faith in the heart. And if one has gone through, as in the Dhruva Maharaj's purport, Prabhupada says, the heart is just like a pot, earthen pot. If it is broken, it is very difficult to put it together. So therefore, this is a fact that even if you take the case of ISKCON, that when ISKCON established in 1966 by Prabhupada, till 1977 had Prabhupada's disciples more than 5,000 to 6,000. I don't know the exact number. And practically hardly 20 Indians were there, all were from the West. But in the 80s, when there was a very, very huge crisis, where so many devotees who were leaders had difficulties and challenges in their practice, and they left the movement. So that leaders who were inspiring the faith of many, many across the world, when they left, many could not follow that. Many could not understand that, and many could not deal with it, and they also left. So, in fact, when devotees go through situations where they see the leadership is failing in either the character or competence, then out of that, deficiency in character is more difficult to reconcile, because sometimes in the outside world, competence is given maximum priority in the corporate world. But in this Krishna consciousness movement, a leader may not be so effective in establishing preaching movement, may not be able to attract so many people, or there may be a lot to be desired in his approach. But if that devotee is sincerely practicing Krishna consciousness, following the positive principles, avoiding the negative principles, then still they can be leader in good standing. But when the leader in Krishna consciousness have deviations in their following of the principles, then that creates the greatest crisis. And so many have left Krishna consciousness because of that. So if you consider the case of India, India was hardly 4 temples and hardly any Indian devotees in those days. But because of the sincere practice of several Indian leaders, who did not have any challenges in their character, then the Krishna consciousness in India grew steadily. So I think that's the first important principle, that if we are surrounded by devotees who have good character, good practice, that can be very faith giving. Okay. And if you say, I don't have anyone around me who is having good devotional character, who's not having any proper practice also, then it's really a crisis. And this needs to be escalated to another level to address this issue. And if you are saying that this is the report of the international headquarters, then it becomes a global crisis. But I'm assuming that, things are not so bad, but the character is good, but maybe decision making may not be up to the mark. So as I said before, that in Mahabharata also, in Bhagavatam also, different devotees may have excellent character, but their decision making may not always be satisfactory. Even if you read Giriraj Maharaj's book about Prabhupada and the decision which he was making, so none of the devotees like Shyam Sundar Prabhu or Tamal Krishna Maharaj had any doubt about Srila Prabhupada's character. They had only love and pure affection for Prabhupada. But when it comes to decision, then you're talking about something rational, you're talking about something logical, and there could be 100 different ways of looking at things. So they genuinely thought that Prabhupada is actually, making a mistake. So if you see, I have written some nice notes from that particular section where Tamal Krishna Maharaj says that I'm just quoting from Tamal Krishna Maharaj what I wrote. It was basically due to our spiritual defect that we did not carry out Srila Prabhupada's desire. It was so clear and strong desire, yes, yet we could not see it as such. We thought that Prabhupada had made a mistake. So why I'm sharing this is because right now, all of us, I'm sure, have experiences where we feel that, the authorities or the in charges under whom we are working or with whom we are working, they may be making some wrong decisions. They are making some mistakes. So I'm just sharing this to show that even Srila Prabhupada had to go through with his very intimate associates who had no doubt about his character at all. Prabhupada's character was like flawless, pure, like an open book. But again, decision making, we began to feel, Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, we have to get out of this agreement. We have got to cancel it. And the lawyers showed us how we could do it. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, I know it sounds unbelievable. It is unbelievable to me also, but we did it. It means we canceled it. It was very unfortunate. And he says it was one of those things when the disciple has his independent intelligence and independent desires that are separate from the spiritual master. It was a very big mistake. So, of course, I'm just giving this as an example, not saying that every decision taken by every leader is right, or that every follower is wrong or whatever. But I'm just saying that we will all be faced with situations where even the most trustworthy character person like Yudhishthir was suddenly overwhelmed by a decision-making blackout. It's basically like a blackout. When we faint, when on a fasting day, when we do not have sufficient water and we are going through something and suddenly we black out and collapse. So sometimes leaders who are making decisions every single day, they are constantly bombarded by, decisions or by expectations of decisions. Because of that fatigue, sometimes they just black out. And sometimes they make some decision which even later they wonder, how did I make such a decision? So basically, between decision making and character, I think a pure character is non-negotiable, but a perfect decision making may not always be possible. And therefore, we should have moderate expectations and know that whatever I am expecting from my leaders today, many of my subordinates will expect from me tomorrow. And the karma ghost will follow me. So better I be, reasonable and be practical. So these are some thoughts I thought I can share. I don't know whether it has answered your query.
That certainly helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Nanda Dulal Prabhu, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for your the presentation was so nice. It was very much frank, honest, and also the answer that you gave to Madhav Gaurang Prabhu, the question was also very nice. I had something similar, but then I thought maybe I should not ask it. There was this reference to contemplating on, am I doing sufficient today to take the mission tomorrow where it should be, where I want to take it. And then there was a reference to a quality of innovation, that maybe we should think deeply in our heart, am I doing sufficient and am I really contributing to take the mission ahead? So sometimes, Prabhuji, when I'm thinking like this, I have this self doubt, I can say, that is my concept of innovation within the realm of parampara? And sometimes it becomes a real challenge to think deeply that what if my innovation goes outside the circle of parampara or tradition?
Right.
So would like to hear from you your thoughts about how to go deep into this thought and how to innovate, but always staying loyal to the parampara.
I think that's an excellent question, because this dynamic tension between tradition and innovation is always going to be there. I give the example of a highway traffic. In highway, there may be 5 lanes, and then you are going behind a vehicle, and then you see a very long traffic jam in that lane. So then you decide, okay, let me move the car to the next lane, and you go ahead. Then again there is traffic, then you move to the next lane. So when you see traffic in front of you, it is like tradition, and you may be slowed down, and you may think it is too slow, so let me change lanes to go faster.
Yes.
But while changing lanes, we should be careful that we should not go outside the highway only after the last lane. And I think you are in the right space to hear this answer, because you are on the highway right now, or you are on the road somewhere. So it's a practical example that there is a limit to which we can keep moving. So therefore, Pradyumna Prabhu's question to Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada's answer, I think I'll try to find it and share it with you on this, is very, very important, where Pradyumna Prabhu suggests some innovation to Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada says that preaching is not a matter of just innovating. Preaching is a matter of, what am I doing to please Krishna? The purpose of my preaching is to please Krishna. By pleasing Krishna, then Krishna inspires the devotees in their hearts, they become transformed. And then, that endeavor is really successful. So therefore, the paradigm of success in preaching is very much closely connected to pleasing the Guru Parampara.
Yes.
So therefore, we can be very, very confident that our International Society for Krishna Consciousness has such a large body of senior leaders and watchful leaders, that as soon as we do something which is not in line with what the tradition is allowing, immediately there will be responses. So when the reactions and the responses from senior devotees come, we should be very flexible to hear those, because they are actually reflecting and speaking on behalf of the larger body of devotees.
Yes.
If somebody is coming and taking the trouble to actually share some concern with us, we should know that if one person is speaking, 100 people may have been observing and keeping quiet, because only 1% of devotees actually take the trouble to actually open up, and maybe 99 other people have told that one person because of the relationship they have, and so they take the trouble to come and share.
Yes.
So just because one person comes and says, hey, I'm a little worried about the way your activities are happening, is it going off the highway? So we should not blast him back saying that, hey, what you know about it, you know how much impact I have done, and you have no idea, and you have no background in preaching and this and that. So we should be taking it in the positive spirit, and reflect on what has been spoken, and see whether we can actually do things in such a way that it harmonizes with what needs to be done. So yes, it's a very
Yes.
important question, and the answers are not straightforward. And currently, the GBC has formed a nice committee called Innovative Preaching Committee. So in that, we are trying to figure out what is the best way we can balance both. So I think by midterm meeting, or at least by December, we will come up with a position paper or a document which will give guidelines on how to balance innovation and tradition, like that.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Krishnarjana Prabhu, last question. I'm not able to hear you. I don't know.
Even we are not able to hear.
Maybe you can ask tomorrow. So we will see you again tomorrow evening. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.